Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello and welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. My name is John Sanders. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and today you are going to hear from a guy that serves as a missionary in a different part of the world, but has a background in business, was very much involved in a business of his own before God led him and his family to move out of the United States and to serve as a missionary in a foreign country. But one thing I love about our guest today, Shawn Paul, is that even while on the mission field, he tapped into that entrepreneurial gifting that God has put in his heart, and he built another stream of revenue for he and his family beyond just what they were receiving through the financial contributions of their donors and their supporters. And again, it's a model that really excites us here at Entre Pastors. It's what we believe might be a very good model for many other missionaries to look at and see, how can I thrive beyond just what I'm getting for kind of the bare essentials from my financial supporters? How can I thrive and really support my family well through some kind of entrepreneurial business of my own? You're going to hear Shawn tell the story of how he came about the idea for the business that he created and how that has created some streams of revenue for he and his family. He's also going to talk about another brand new business idea that he's working on. And so we're excited to introduce to you Shawn Paul. Without any further ado, check out this conversation that me and Les had with Shawn. Here we go. Well, Shawn, welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast, man. It's great having you on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Tell the story real quick before we get an introduction to yourself. How did you find out about Entre Pastors and the work that we're doing here? How did you get connected with us?
Well, you guys contacted my pastor, Pastor Terry Linscott at Abundant Life Church in Kentucky. And just, he knows my heart for entrepreneurship. I was an entrepreneur prior to going to the mission field. So he just suggested that I would contact you guys and share my story about how God has provided income for me.
Okay, cool. Well, give us a little bit of fill in some details there. You say you're a missionary, you're also an entrepreneur. So if we were to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience, how would you do that? What would you use? What words would you use to describe yourself to our community?
Okay. Well, I mean, prior to mission field, I've been in business since 1993. And, just various forms in real estate. I've just, my whole entire adult life, besides missions, have always been surrounded by real estate. So then, got the call to go to the mission field in 2008, and then, worked our way there, 5-year process. In 2013, we moved to the mission field. So, as a missionary, in Central America, 9 years in Honduras, we recently moved to Guatemala. We work in 3 nations: Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. But I mean, as an entrepreneur, you just never really lose that heart. We're supported very well in the mission work that we do. And you use entrepreneurship in that. I mean, a lot of people hate to use the word business, in tied to ministry, but it should be ran like a business in the sense of basically just be profitable, so to speak, manage your finances properly and so forth. But again, I've never lost that entrepreneurship, so I do look for opportunities to provide personal income as well.
Well, I appreciate that. You're speaking kind of to the heartbeat of our tribe, because we are of the mindset that ministry and business don't have to be these, mutually, opposing viewpoints. Yeah, they can be the same, one and the same thing. We believe that there is a huge ministry aspect to business, and as you just said, there should be some business aspect to ministry. I don't know why when we introduce things as this is the kingdom of God, all of a sudden excellence and quality control and balancing the budget gets thrown out the window because it's all operating on faith. And So anyway, you're speaking our language with that. That doesn't offend us at all. We're excited by that concept. So tell me about this. Take me deeper into that story where you are working, full-time here in the United States in business and real estate, and now you're sensing a call toward the mission field. Like, tell me more about that. What were some of the challenges you had to go through mentally as you prepared to make that a major adjustment in your life?
Yeah, you know, I've been saved since 1990. You know, I have always kind of known that there's a ministerial call on my life, but it never seemed like things fit, so to speak. A call to a pastor or whatever. We've always had leadership roles. My wife and I, both in church. We always had leadership roles, but the pastoral route just never fit. We are part of a mission-minded church. I'll be honest with you, just never was interested in missions. We went to Mexico. I mean, I was there to serve. I had a good heart, but it didn't tickle my fancy as far as anything other than going on a short-term team. And then 2007, we were at a Christmas party. My pastor said, "Hey, I'm going to Honduras." And the Spirit of God just leaped in my heart and said, "You go." So I couldn't go on that trip with him. So I made another trip and went there, and literally God just slammed me and said, "You're going to the mission field." And I had no issues with that. That was not even an issue for me. My heart is always to follow God and to serve him wherever, in whatever capacity he calls me to. And then, in the 5-year process, I love my wife, but she was a little nervous about it. We had some young kids, not young kids, teenagers at the time. So, it's just hard for her to process that. I just think in the 5-year process of getting there, her heart was being prepared. Things were being prepared. Things were being lined up. I never said that we went to the mission field too late, because I believe we went on time, meaning there was just this way everything connected once we got on ground. It could not have happened unless we went at that time. So basically in 2013, we sold everything we owned. We gave up a lot of things. I basically closed my business as far as real estate and flipping homes, and basically packed in 6 suitcases and one daughter. The other daughter was married. One daughter, and we went to the mission field. So, and the rest is history.
Now,
Hey, Shawn, could I ask
ahead,
a question real quick, John? I'm curious just about those feelings of anxiety, because this is again part of our message. How much of that, if you can look back now, in 2020 hindsight, how much of that anxiety was related to maybe the uncertainty of what it meant to be in a different place in the world and doing kingdom work, versus just the natural anxiety that would be there, and for you and your wife and family, of our standard of living is going to change now, whereas in real estate you did have some control on those levers, as far as what your income was going to be. Now it's going to be dependent upon donors. Or did you go in with a mindset of, hey, we can make this work. I can go out, I can make money, I can start businesses. I'm just curious as to how that was, especially since this is kind of an adult decision that you're making, right? I mean, you had a career first.
Okay. Well, okay. So now when I say this, I'm not, I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just telling you who I am in
It's
my
just
heart.
us talking. It's just us talking, Shawn. Just
Sure.
right ahead.
It's not bragging, it's the facts either. So brag away.
So 1998, I gave my life to Jesus Christ in Radcliffe, Kentucky. And then I was in the military. 3 months later, I moved back to Iowa. That's where I grew up. But I stayed connected to Abundant Life Church the 9 years that we were in Iowa. And so in that time, I had a construction company, very prosperous construction company, but literally God said, "You're selling your company and you're moving back to Kentucky." And so that's my first process of going through, of giving up everything and basically starting all over. And that's what we did in 1999. We started over everything. We had, and again, we had an extremely successful construction company. So I already went through that process once, as far as in meaning walk away from, family, walking away from great income, walking away from a home we own, walking away from all that. So to go to the mission field, to be honest with you, it was just more, it was excitement for me because I knew by building a construction company and following the Spirit of God, I knew where God was taking me. And I knew in my heart, I was called to the mission field. And I'll tell you this, I had this interesting conversation with a friend of mine in the hospital. He was there for various reasons. And I was in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. And I had I had to eat before I went home. It was dinner time. And he asked me, Shawn, are you, because this was like maybe a week out before we moved. And he said, Shawn, are you really nervous about all this? And I said, Terry, I'm going to tell you something. I had two decisions to make when I leave this hospital. And I'm having a harder time deciding that than going to the mission field. And that was where I was going to go eat. Am I going to go to the barbecue place or the Chinese restaurant? And I was struggling with that more so than going to the mission field. So that was me personally. I knew God was going to take care of me and everything was going to be fine. That wasn't an issue for me. I'm just willing to give up everything for God. Now, my wife, on the other hand, yes, she struggled with that. And I'm not here to mock her. I'm sure that, if I was a mother and, looking at the rated most violent country in the world, yeah, I would have a lot of questions, and, I'm taking my teenage daughter there. And so, yes, she dealt with those issues. But I think once she got on mission ground, and the other thing that she was struggling with was the fact that she was a children's administrator for probably, I'm going to say about 20 some years. And she felt like she's walking away from her children's ministry, and she felt like her ministry is over with. And the thing of it is today, Morning Star Missions is more children's ministry than anything else that we do. So God magnified her children's ministry. So hopefully that answered your question. As far as anxiety, I didn't deal with anxiety, just to be honest with you.
I had a similar question, but a little different, just in terms of was this the traditional kind of funding model that we see in missions, where you raise outside financial support from donors and then, leave everything and go? Was that same for you guys? That was kind of the business model for your sustenance?
Okay, so being a realtor, being a home flipper, we had a sizable bank account. I mean, everything was great as far as on that side. I never took that in consideration. But we were promised $350 a month as far as on support. So It was a leap of faith. It definitely was a leap of faith. But now bear in mind, my buddy in Copaninas, that's where we moved to, he said, oh, you can live here for $500 a month easily. Okay, so once we got on the mission ground and went shopping and looked at prices, I was like, dude, seriously, where did you get your numbers at? Because this is not accurate. So yeah, at first I was thrown into a tailspin as far as that. I started thinking, okay, well, we can rely on our bank account, because that was never the plan. It was plan B. And I will tell you this, the Spirit of God told me, you rely on that bank account, I will drain your bank account. So literally I was obedient, and I'd probably say within about 2 months to a month, we were fully funded within that time frame. So our ministry has been fully funded for the entire 9 years that we've been in the mission field.
Wow. So are you still actively on the mission field, or a little bit of both, or what does that look like today?
Oh, no, we're definitely on the mission field. I mean, I'm sitting in Guatemala right now. So,
okay, very good.
Yeah, we have no plans as of right now. There's no plans of moving to the United States. It's just, to me, this is our life. So,
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So let's get into some of the entrepreneurial side of this. Then one of the reasons you reached out was you have a pretty cool story about how you developed some additional stream of revenue to go beyond just what you're relying on your financial supporters and donors for. And that's really what we're about. We love helping people with a ministry mindset, whether they're pastors or missionaries or just plain old kingdom people that want to serve God's church, but don't necessarily want to be solely dependent upon that. We believe entrepreneurship is a good vehicle to take you to that place where you have some options, you have some resources coming in over and above that ministry money, if you will. So tell the story. What did you do? And we'll dig into that a little bit.
Okay. So, I mean, early on in ministry, again, I say that we were fully funded. It's fully funded, but there's no extras, on top of that. So, and we weren't drawing like a personal salary, basically it just met our needs, met the needs of the ministry, if that makes sense. So, I just prayed to God. I said, look, Lord, I want a source of income. And just as I said to you before we opened up, I like toys, computers and phones and things like that. So, I looked at, I just started praying for that in my life. And, I put something on Facebook about needing a generator, and then my friend, he moved back to the United States, but he still had his rental house in Honduras. And he said, "Hey, I have a generator you can have." So we drove all the way over there, about a 6-hour drive. And in the backyard was this aquaponics system. And for people who don't know what it is you're basically growing plants in containers that's tied into a fish tank. The fish water fertilizes the plants, and the plants and the media in the tanks clean the water with the bacteria that grows in there. So, I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's cool, and I mean, I didn't even think anything of it. I went back home, and the house that we were blessed with to live in just had a nice sized backyard. And God just kept on putting my heart, put that aquaponics system back here. And, I was a kid growing up. My dad had gardens. He made me heal those potatoes and, pull the weeds. I hated growing stuff. I just never, I can't stand it. So, but, God just kept on saying it. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then finally I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we, put the aquaponics system in the backyard. I just felt in my heart, let's video this while I'm doing it. Never any inclination of anything. Just started videoing it, the whole entire process. I put a few things on Facebook. I had a friend contact me and say, "Hey man, I want to know more about this." I said, "Look, I'll just throw a video together, throw it on YouTube for you, and you can watch it." And that's what I did. Again, no thought of anything. 3 months later, I look at the views on the YouTube, and it was like 33,000 views. I mean, it was huge. I was like, whoa, wow, there's money here. So literally, I just started praying and saying, "God, I need wisdom on how to do all this." And so literally, God started showing me how to create a business out of this and how to create an ebook out of this. And so I just literally started following the whole process. And I didn't know how to process payments and how to issue the ebook online. And just all of a sudden, this guy calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, I watched your YouTube channel. I have some questions." And honestly, they were just simple questions. I like, you could answer these yourself. I'm not saying I said that, but I was thinking that in my mind. And I said, "By the way, what do you do?" And he goes, "Well, I'm a missionary, part-time missionary, but I create websites." I'm like, "Oh, seriously? I have some questions for you." He told me exactly how to set up that website. And so I'm just saying, it's just how God brought people in my path on how to create this. And literally, I built the website. I wrote my first book, and literally instantly I started getting sales because I tied my website to YouTube. Instantly started getting sales. God brought another system in like a smaller one, because a lot of people were saying your system's so big. I built a smaller one, inserted that into the ebook, and then kept on selling. And then I wrote 2 other books on aquaponics to offer as a package. And the last I checked, we're in like over 75 countries around the world as far as where we sold ebooks.
That's really cool.
So now one other thing.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. I do want to say one other thing. It's part of the story I forgot to share. I did not even, because at first aquaponics seems complex, and it's not. But it was complex to me. My father passed away. I was going to the United States. I ordered a bunch of stuff like pumps and things like that. And I still didn't know what I was doing. I had them in my suitcase on the plane. I got in the plane in Des Moines, Iowa. That's where my parents were at. The plane, the door would not shut. They were trying to get it repaired. I missed my flight in Atlanta. And so I was in the exit row, and I love the exit row. So I went to Delta. I said, "Hey, I need to reschedule my flight." She said, "I'll put you on tomorrow." I said, "Look, I need that exit row because that's where my seat was." She says, "I can't promise that." And so I'm like, "Oh, okay, no problem." And she goes, "By the way, you're going to Honduras. I'm from Honduras." I'm telling you, this is God. This is what's so awesome. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she goes, where you live in Honduras?" And I go, "I live in Copan. She says, "My friend lives there." I'm like, "Really?" She says, "She's Dr. So-and-so." I'm like, "I know her. We go to the same church." She goes, I'll get you on that exit row. I'm like, cool. So she gave me exit row seats. The next day, got on the plane. And you know how they give the spiel of the exit row, you got to assist. And if you're not willing to assist, you can't sit here. Well, this elderly lady from across the aisle, she raises her hand. She goes, I'm too old. I can't assist. And so she says, ma'am, I'm sorry. You can't be here. So she moved her to another area of the plane. All of a sudden, this couple is walking down the aisle. This lady goes, oh, the favor of God. And the steward says, you guys can sit here. So she next to me across the aisle. This guy's sitting right next to me. I'm in the air, and God keeps on saying, talk to this guy. And I'm like, what am I supposed to say to him? I just don't talk to people on planes. It's just not my habit, And finally, I'm like, okay, are you a missionary? And he goes, well, I'm not a missionary. We train missionaries, but also I have this ministry called GlowDev. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's GlowDev? He goes, I build aquaponics systems. I mean, come on. Tell me there ain't no God. Tell me there ain't no God.
Wow.
God, I miss a plane. He puts the people right next to me that wasn't supposed to sit there. I wasn't supposed to get reissued that seat, but I did. And then he says, come to San Pedro Sula and I'll show you how to build your system. And that's what he did. So anyway, that was another component of my story.
Shawn, did you sell systems too, or in some kind of did you do, or was it just kind of the coaching and how to in the ebooks?
I did offer, if you bought an ebook, I would help you. But basically it was probably about 2 or 3 emails a month, if any of that someone to email me. Other than that, it just ran itself. I never, ever got involved in like selling systems. I would offer to help build a system, but as far as selling systems, I never did that.
Well, I got a couple questions around that. So it sounds like you are doing what we call the information-based pathway, where you are basically selling your knowledge of how to grow and build an aquaponic system. But that's really all you were selling then. Was you're not selling kits or startup this or that. It's basically just the information so that others can do the same thing, right?
Yes. So you get 3 ebooks downloadable on the website, and for $24.95, and basically it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
I've had I had a patent attorney call me one time and said, this is probably some of the best information I've ever seen. Because again, I'm a teacher that's my heart as a teacher. So I just literally taught them exactly step-by-step through the whole entire process on how to build the system.
So what's the end game for someone who's building their own aquaponics? Is it just grow food for yourself, or is this grow something to then sell? Or is it both, either or?
Okay, this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying I'm exactly correct. I serve the backyard guys, that guys or ladies, that would build aquaponic systems. I've never got into commercial. Commercial, I could be wrong now today, but from what I understand, commercial is difficult to make it profitable. So a lot of them do turn to creating schools, tourism, and selling, products. That's what a lot of them that I have seen go to. To me, backyard aquaponics is more of a hobby. Hey, you're some guy that likes to tinker, you like to grow things, to offset as far as your food costs. Now, today it may be different, but when I had it, it just did not make sense for me, because I could go to the local market. I could buy a pineapple for 50 cents. So, right. Having pumps and building at that time, systems were like $4,000. It just, to me, it did not make economical sense. So somebody that does do aquaponics, I really believe it's more so just the joy of tinkering and like I process my own water here. I don't go buy bottled water. I filter my own water. I have a UV light. I just like that stuff. So to me, it's just more exciting to do my own water and drink it and say, well, I process this water. And I think it's the same thing with aquaponics.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. This is kind of getting into the weeds, but before we hit record here, you were saying that, the market's become a little flooded now with this, no pun intended, but there's a lot of people jumping into this aquaponics thing, and that maybe you feel like you're starting to lose a little momentum there. first of all, and you said you had another idea, which we may get into if you care to share it. But
Sure.
before we just totally give up and move away from the aquaponics thing, tell me more about that. Like, how can you, even though more people are getting in, there's more videos, there's more resources available for people out there. How can you still, like, maybe hold on to some of that market space that you've already carved out? Like, what are some creative ways that you can just keep creating income there instead of just going, well, I had my time in the sun there, now I got to go, launch something else. So I'm just kind of poking around there a little bit, and we're going to do a live coaching call if we can.
Well, okay. So this is the thing that I have done in the past. Okay. So the more I try to perfect the book, the more I try to offer more products on the book, or meaning more information, I never saw growth. And then it got to the point where there's a lot of guys just throwing a lot of money at advertising. So, meaning paying for your YouTube video to pop up, it just became so competitive in that sense. And then, I sponsored, or I worked with a school in El Salvador to build their system. I just didn't see any new content getting legs and pushing my content more. I just didn't see that. And now, there's guys, there's a guy in Australia, I don't remember his name, but he produces videos one after another. See, I did not keep my aquaponics system. The reason being was because we did a lot of mountain ministry, or we were away from our home. And so and then you had power issues, the power would go off constantly. So then all of a sudden you come back and your pumps aren't running anymore. And then, pretty soon your fish are dying or whatever. So I just felt in my situation, it just wasn't beneficial. So I was not able to create the constant content to keep people coming to my YouTube channel. So that was my issues that I dealt with. And then, like I said, there's just a lot of people starting to write books. There's a lot of people just producing a massive amount of content on YouTube. So again, I didn't run with it like with a lot of people have ran with it. So I don't want to say I'm walking away from it, but I'll tell you something. I was in the mortgage industry, from 2001 to 2008. Okay. And, I had a friend, at that time was subprime lending, and literally you could breathe on a mirror. As long as there's breath, you could get a loan. I mean, literally back then it was like a wild, wild west, making serious, crazy money, like 6-figure income, no issues at all in what I was doing. And I had a friend that was making $250,000. He said to me, Shawn, you got to learn to ride the waves, and this wave will crash. And guess what? 2008, it crashed. My friends that were in $500,000 homes at that time, obviously it was huge homes, they were losing their homes. They were losing their Mercedes-Benz SUVs. Now, I had my little house in Radcliffe that I always lived well below my means. But what Jon said was so true. You got to ride the wave when and get off the wave when it's about ready to crash. And I'm not saying the wave of aquaponics is crashing. I'm just saying that it's a wave that I rode. It was very financially, it provided me finances, but I think it's time for me to consider other options and take that knowledge that I learned and apply it to a new project that I'm looking at.
Yeah, makes total sense, man. It makes absolute total sense, especially if you're still not in that space. I've reinvented myself several times in kind of the work that I do with different podcasts and different platforms. And, every time I shut one down, I've had people go, well, are you ready? Is that really wise? Should you keep, contributing content there? And it's like, well, if that's not really where I'm focused right now, it doesn't make sense to just keep it going. Like, yeah, I'm right there with you. That's what, as entrepreneurs, that's what we do much of the time is, we start things and hand them off and then move on to the next thing. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit of what is the next thing, or what's the next big thing you're dreaming about?
Okay. Now, one thing I do want to make a statement here before I go is that, I have vowed to God that I would never allow any entrepreneurship type ventures to affect my ministry. I will never allow it to get in the way. If it's going to get in the way, I will stop it in seconds. And I think that because of my heart, God honors that. as far as that heart. I'm not going to allow anything to get in the way of my ministry. And so entrepreneurship, it takes the back seat. And if I can't run it from the back seat, then I'm not going to do it. Now, the next thing is, I got into this Facebook thing, early on, and I created this page called Life is Jesus Christ on Facebook. And I learned how to really run that well. And I knew what would get the likes, shares, and comments. And literally that thing ramped up to 690,000 people that follow it. Now, bear in mind, throughout the years of having it, I started in 2013, like in April of 2013. I tried to monetize it, and it just, selling Christian t-shirts or whatever it may be. And I just could not get legs on it. And I would get frustrated with it. So, literally I got into these authority websites, and people may not understand what that means, but basically affiliate marketing, and you are an authority in certain areas, like maybe dog food. You're an authority in dog food and rating dog food. So literally, if you go to Google and you type in, best dog food 2022, what are you going to get? You're going to get a website that's going to do comparisons of different types of dog food. And then you click the link, where's it going to go? It's either going to go to like Amazon, Chewy.com, whatever. Well, those are affiliate sites. They're going to pay you for whatever they buy, and so, and then obviously there's other types of affiliate programs as well. Like like if you're an authority on life insurance, basically they click on a link of, Life Mutual, whatever, they'll pay that person $50. Doesn't matter whether they bought or not. So I started taking an interest in these authority sites. And I was looking at going to create training, because again, I know how to create training material. I was going to create training material on how to build authority sites. Basically one authority site, they sell like 20 packages a month, and they sell them for $500. You add that up quickly. So there's a lot of money in selling content on how to create an authority site. So in my prayer time, I really felt like God led me over to say, look, you need to start building out lifeisjesuschrist.com. Now it's under construction. So literally, if you look at justdisciple.com, or I can't remember the other one, Got Answers, they just literally, it's all Christian content, And so literally I'm going to build an authority site on Christian content. And then in that, I'm looking at monetizing that website. So I know how to get on page one of Google, on a Google search. And so on what types of content to write, I know how to do keyword search studies, on what are low-hanging fruit content to write and so forth. And that's really where I'm going now, as far as creating that website out, Life is Jesus Christ, and then couple the Facebook page together and create other social media sites as well. And then, like I said, monetize that website, lifeisjesuschrist.com.
Love that, man. That's so good. So as we start getting ready to wrap up here, we have a lot of people in our community who are pastors or they are missionaries. We have a number of missionaries around the world that we know listen to this show. And again, just people with a kingdom mindset that, and one of the things I mean when I say that is they struggle with some money issues. Like we find it's not uncommon in our community for people to have some hangups around money because they've been told that, you can either serve God or money, but you can't have both. And, we are certainly not health and wealth, prosperity gospel people. That's not our tribe. That's not our camp. But we're also not in the other extreme of, that the more broke and destitute you are, the more, righteous you are and more pleasing to the Lord your life is. We believe it's possible if you really lean into how God has wired and shaped you, that you can have both. You can have a true obedience to God's calling upon your life, and you can have some financial margin. God's not mad about that. So the reason I'm kind of setting the stage with that, I'd love for you to speak to that Christian that's listening to this right now. Maybe they're a vocational pastor. Maybe they have a strong sense of calling toward the mission field. Maybe they're already there, serving as a missionary. But what would you say to them to encourage them down this road, to give them that permission, if you will, to say, look, you can develop some other streams of revenue and And it's okay. Like, what would you say to encourage and motivate someone to do something similar to what you've done?
Yeah. Now, in the 30 years plus years that I've served the Lord, I've seen, the prosperity messages and so forth. I embrace being a prosperous Christian,
Sure.
but I always, I cringe when I see that people think that, if I sow $100, I'm going to get $1,000. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I'm just saying that sometimes it's like that's all they obsessively think about is how can I get more out of God? And see, I've never thought that way. I've always just thought, hey, I live a life in Christ. I serve the Lord. I'm obedient to his call in my life. I'm just going to be a blessed guy. That's just what I believe in my heart. And so to me, what I look at is as a missionary, I believe that we should be blessed in the mission field, that we should be able to fund the things that God's called us to do. We've never chased after things for the photo ops. We've never chased after things to, hey, if we do this, we're going to get more attention. We've always just only done what we felt like God is leading us to do. And then, the next thing is that, I'm not ashamed to be blessed. I'm not ashamed to be blessed. I believe again that I should be blessed, but I think, and again, I'm talking about missionaries here. I think sometimes missionaries, they don't look at their mission ministry as a business in the sense, again, we talked about that a little bit, is there's practical things that you could do in a business that you should be doing in your ministry, like financial management, managing your finances properly. Again, just because we serve God and we're supposed to walk in faith doesn't mean that bags of gold is just going to plop on the doorstep. I think that we should financially manage our ministry properly. And a lot of times missionaries, it's like they get a $2,000 love offering. All of a sudden now they're thinking, well, what can we do to spend this? They're looking around. We got to go buy, 50 bags of food, or we got to go over here and just keep on blowing money. Sometimes you got to look at what you're doing financially. Are you being good stewards with those finances? Are you doing what God's called you to do with those finances? Or why are you just going and blowing money for no particular reason? I remember sitting on my front porch, God said, you need to start saving money. And again, it was, those are the lean times of ministry. You need to start saving money. We started saving money. And then no more than 6 months later, our transmission went out on our truck. Guess what? We had money because we saved. We weren't going out and blowing that, so we were good stewards with our finances. And so we're good stewards with our finances to this day. And then the next thing is, I come from marketing, I market businesses. I marketed our company. So I'm a good guy on showing and sharing what we are doing. I ask God to help me connect with the right people that will want to partner with the work that we're doing. And so I think that all those things work and help us be a ministry that is expanding. We're going from Honduras to Guatemala to El Salvador. We're looking for opportunities. We're bringing in teams. So I'm just saying that when you allow the Spirit of God to lead and guide you, you're good stewards of your finances. You have an expectation of God providing for what he's called you to do. I don't see why you should not be able to prosper. And again, it isn't about you obsess over that prosperity, because I don't obsess over it. I don't think about it. It's not on my mind. I just look back and say, whoa, man, we're living a great life. Thank you, Lord. But it's not what we think about. I think about doing kingdom work. And that's how I live my life.
I love that.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really good. Shawn, if anybody that's listening to this wanted to reach out to you and connect, what's the best way for them to find you online and touch base with you?
Well, I mean, it would be morningstarmissions.org. And then you can email me at Shawn, SHAWN, at morningstarmissions.org, or they can text me. They can text me on a US phone, 502-509-3607, or they can call me. So, that's one thing I do have a heart is I don't want to say mentorship, but we've we've mentored, I guess that would be the word. We've mentored quite a few missionaries. We've helped missionaries get to the field. Or if it's just general things that you feel like you want to ask me questions or talk to me, feel free to contact me anytime. I have a heart and I love to help people.
Love that.
Sounds
Well,
good,
man, it's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit and hear your story. These are exactly the kind of stories we love sharing and helping others know this is possible to live this way, to thrive in both ministry and business. And so we're grateful to you for coming on the show and sharing your story. And we wish you all the best as you continue to build God's kingdom and also thrive in the business marketplace as well. So all the best to you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it was awesome to be on your podcast.
Thanks, Shawn.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the Entre Pastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the Entre Pastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our Entre Pastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own Entre Pastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.